Welcome to this video. Today I am showing you how to compare two Excel sheets for differences properly without a fragile VLOOKUP formula and without installing anything. Think about your monthly payroll or your chart of accounts or your vendor list. Every month something changes. A new employee joins, someone's salary is updated, a vendor is removed. The question is, how do you know exactly what changed and can you show that someone has reviewed it? Most people do this with manual VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP or any other lookup methodology, or by scrolling through two spreadsheets side by side. Both are slow, both frequently fail at the moment a row gets inserted or deleted because they are comparing by position, not by identity. Microsoft Excel does have a native spreadsheet compare tool but is locked to Microsoft 365 Enterprise and Professional Plus licenses. If you are on a business standard or home, it's simply not there no matter where you look in the ribbon. I built a tool that solves this properly with no license requirement and no installation. It's called ExceptionGuard. In this video, I'll show you both free version and enterprise version using real payroll data. You can see exactly how it works. Just for your information, this particular new tool, which is ExceptionGuard, it's an upgraded version or latest version of my previous tool, which is available on my website. This is the older version, which is Compare Data Workbook. Also, there are a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, but this new version is the latest iteration with advanced features. Let me explain what makes this different from a simple formula. First, it doesn't just tell you that two data sets are different. It classifies every single row into one of the four categories: added, removed, changed, or same. Every row gets a clear label. Second, when a row has changed, it tells you exactly which column changed. Not just this record is different, the specific field. Third, matching happens by a unique key column, employee code, account number, whatever identifies a row, not by its position on the sheet. So if a row gets added or deleted in either dataset, the comparison stays accurate. That's the exact failure mode that breaks a formula like sheet 1 cell A1 does not equal to sheet 2 cell A1. Fourth, and this matters if you work in finance or audit, enterprise version keeps a log of every action taken in the workbook. Who ran the comparison, when, and what the result was. That's useful if you ever need to show that review actually took place. Everything runs locally inside Excel. Nothing is updated anywhere, which matters if you are working with payroll or financial data and your company wouldn't be comfortable with data going to external web, especially with the data protection law around the globe. This tool works well for two kinds of use. First, it's a compliance and audit work, proving that changes to payroll, chart of accounts, or vendor master data were reviewed. The second is analytics, comparing month-over-month expenses, tracking payroll trends, or reviewing HR data changes over a time. It's the same engine used for two different purposes. Now let's open and see how it actually works. Now let me walk you through the actual workbook. This is the enterprise edition of Compare Data Workbook, or I should call it ExceptionGuard. We have total 10 tabs as you can see on the screen: instruction, old data, new data, comparison, added data, remove data, change data, same data, audit log, and config. Let's start with instruction. In the instruction tab, as you can see, we have detailed instruction, and you can always reach out to me at this email address if you have any issue. I highly recommend you go through instruction in detail, spend some time, because this is a one-time exercise. Once you get hang of the workbook, you will never maybe have to look at this file. But if you are sharing this workbook with your colleague, or if you are sharing with your friend who needs this workbook, just advise them or yourself get acquainted with these instructions. So second tab is old data. This is where you put the data, the older version, or if you talk about payroll case, previous month's payroll data. And here you put new data, which is a new set of data which you want to compare. In the payroll case, it will be current month payroll. Let's bring in the data so we have more context and understand in more detail. So I have this data generated. So this is a payroll sheet with headers. So headers are really important. So you need to bring your data with headers in those tables. So this is old data. So I will copy this and go to old data tab here and select row 2 here and do a paste special. Since it's an official Excel table, even if the number of columns are more than the original blank table, it will auto expand. As you have just seen, it auto expanded. And let's go to new data. Here also you can see we have only 8 columns, but our new data, the structure for old and new data in this example has more columns. It doesn't matter. You select your data like this and bring all data along with column, go to row 2 or in this case A2 and do a paste special. As you can see, the table is dynamic and it has expanded all the columns and captured all the data correctly, horizontally and vertically. So we have around 1300 plus rows. And again, the key requirement to use ExceptionGuard or compare data workbook latest version is to have a clean and structured data readily available before you start using the workbook. To achieve this, you can use the tool called Power Query, or you can go here in your Excel version in Get and Transform. I have more blog posts and you can find many tutorials on basics of cleaning of data in Power Query. So once you bring your report from your HRMS or ERP, you just need to set up the steps in Power Query. It is a one-time exercise and you get a clean table as output, something like this. So again, the key requirement is that you bring this data in a structured format. The old data and new data should have an exact same number of columns, which are 20 columns in this case, both old and new data. And first column should be unique column. So this is the first column, employee ID, which is a unique column. So the key requirement here is that first column should be unique column. In this case is employee ID. Now let me copy this employee ID in the config sheet because this is a key requirement. Other than that, you can always change the tag you want. I have kept the tags for new rows, removed rows, variance rows and same rows. And here in this particular case, we have formatted the text for added data in the comparison, added data, simple text for each, as you can see. You will see this in action in a moment. Going back to structured data, as I was saying, the first column must be a unique column. That means this data must have a unique fields. There shouldn't be any repeating rows. If you have mistakenly pasted any data which is not unique or doesn't fit the requirement of competitor workbook VBA code, there is a validation key here which will immediately flag it. So let me click that and here you can see the validation report is clean. So we don't have duplicate keys and blank keys. Keys here means the first column's value. So as simple as that. Now since our data is set, let me click the magic button compare data. As you can see on the screen, it has processed the data comparison so fast in 0.09 seconds for 1300 plus rows. So my claim that it can handle million data rows and process it is not false. As you can see, example of 1000 rows. So it can easily process up to million rows. Of course, it will take a little bit more time, but you're talking about million rows in a tool like Excel, which is readily available. Now let's do some formatting. So I just expanded the column width. As you can see, now as I was saying, going back to config tab, here in this particular area, especially here, you can set up the color for added rows, sample text. So you can set color like this, or you can set any color. If you change the color of this text font here, you will have the same font here. So if I go to added rows or new rows, you see it has a green background with black font. So if I go to config here, it's the same thing. So this is pulling from here. So this is the source of the formatting here. This is just for visual preference. Anyway, we're going to split this data to different 4 sheets anyway for further analysis. So that's only for a visual comparison or a visual, tracking. Similarly for other this 4 fields, which is change row, same cell, difference, which is in cell comparison. So if I go to compare and remove here you can see if I go and do variance rows, these red color cells are the differences in each cell. Now let's look at what this actually means when you get the result. So let's start with the first filter. So here I go and change to new rows. That means these are the new addition of employee. The employee IDs which are not here in old data are here in new data. So those entire rows will be tagged as new data rows. Okay, so if I go here, all these rows are new in new data. Now if I go and filter here, remove data, and if I go on top, so these are the rows or employee IDs which are not here, but they were here in old data. So last month they were not, they were here in this data, they were present in the company, I should say, but in this month they are not there. So if I go back and go same rows, now this is interesting. In the earlier version of compare data workbook, I didn't have this feature. This is the enhanced feature I have added now in this version, where both last month, new month, or old data, new data, the entire row of data, this entire row, for example, let's take an example of employee 1696. If I select it, all 20 columns and cells in this particular range I have selected, they have exact same data. That means all the field in this column, employee ID, employee name, operations, department which is operations, designation associate, grade L1, employee type full-time, employee type full-time, period 2026-05 are same in both places. So if I go and check employee 1696, let's go and check. So you can see Lisa Salazar. As you can see, everything is same. Now let's move on to variance rows. This is the most important and valuable analysis in compare data workbook. So here basically it checks if there are any changes in the cell level. So for example, if you have any changes at cell level or between the both data set, it will flag it. So the first task is to identify whether there are any changes. And if there are any changes, it will highlight between old data and new data where exactly is the change. So in this case, for example, in row 3 for employee, which has 4 letters ending with 2118, Brian Benitez, we have changes in his designation, grade, and if you go on the right, nothing else. Next employee, which is the employee code or employee ID ending with 2053, Thomas. For Thomas, we have changes in days worked, for example. And for the third employee, we have only one change I can see on here in payment status. For fourth employee, the employee code ending with 2132, Jennifer, here we have changes in basic salary, HRA. So the whole package of this employee has changed, as you can see here. It could be high, could be low. We don't know. We have to do further analysis. It should be analytics part of this workbook, which I will come with a complete premium course soon. So subscribe to my channel and also subscribe to my newsletter to learn about it. Similarly, the employee which has ID 1956, Aaron Tyler. The same employee has changes in the salary data. So this way you can do advanced analysis and you can use this compare data workbook for many other analysis and analytics, especially this kind of exception reporting. Now let's look at splitting this data into 4 different tabs which are here. Currently they are blank. Now to split this data, I'm gonna do unfilter and I'll click this button, split into 4 sheets. So what actually happened, all this category of data, that is added row, removed rows, all these 4 categories of data, which is new rows, removed rows, same rows, variance rows, that are split into these 4 tabs. So added data is nothing but new rows. It's just the name you can change here whenever you want, but the nature of the data is same. So all these rows are now separated. Now you can use this particular 4 data set for advanced analytics, especially doing an exception reporting. Especially this particular tab, change data, would be the key here, right? Then we have an audit log. So whoever run this, so the computer name will be recorded here, and also the action and the time. So there is a complete audit log, and I have mentioned configuration. You can set up the configuration here. Remember to touch only column B here, or column C value. Actually it should be column B. So particularly this particular value you can change. I'm selecting and showing you on the screen. Now this is the premium edition of the workbook. Let's go to free edition of the workbook. This free edition uses same engine. Only difference is the limit of 24 rows per dataset, and it doesn't include audit log. Everything else works the same way. If I go to validating key, or validate keys. It has same features, same classification, same color coding, same detail highlighting. This gives you a genuine way to try the tool before deciding whether you need the full version. If I add one more row past 24 row limit and try to run the comparison again, the tool stops and shows a message explaining the limit, suggesting enterprise edition up to 1 million rows. A few things to keep in mind before you try yourself. 3 practical points. First, most important point. This is a macro-enable Excel file. When you open it, Excel will show you a security notice asking you to enable content. This is normal. If your company's IT policy blocks macros, that's a standard security setting, not a fault or any kind of problem with the file. You may need to ask your IT team to approve it. Second, this tool works best when the data is clean. It doesn't clean your data for you. Remove duplicates, fix formatting issues, make sure both data sets have the same column structure before you begin. If your data sets need cleaning, Power Query is a good option for that. I already mentioned how to do this in the previous section of the video. Third, avoid editing the comparison or detail sheets by hand. Every time you run a comparison or split, those sheets are rebuilt from scratch. The manual changes will be lost. So if you do any changes here manually, like delete or add or delete or whatever you're doing for your own purpose, in these 4 sheets, that is comparison, added data, remove data, same data, whenever you run compare data button or this particular macro and split into 4, everything will be overwritten. To bring this back to where we started, this tool turns a manual error-prone comparison into something fast, accurate, easy to document. Whether you are reviewing a payroll changes for an audit or tracking expense trends month over month, and same workflow applies. It works well for chart of account reviews, vendor master updates, inventory changes, or any dataset your ERP exports that changes on a regular basis and needs a proper review process. You will find the free edition available for download in the description. The enterprise edition with unlimited rows, or I would say 1 million rows, and the audit log is linked in the description below. So you can go to the link in the description below where you end up on the blog where you can learn and read about this compare data workbook, or I should call it ExceptionGuard, and there you'll find the link for the free version, also the enterprise version. I'll be following up with more videos showing this same workflow on different data sets, which are payroll you already seen, chart of accounts, vendor master, inventory master, fixed asset master. If that would be useful to you, subscribe so you don't miss them. Thank you so much for watching.